Hey everybody, it's Jason with Parallel Reality coming back with you here today. I found this article from PJ Media dated July 31st, and it's just another one of those thanks Joe Biden, FJB sort of things. It says, now a disease from biblical times may be coming over our unsecured border. Now you may be saying, what disease could that possibly be? And there's a picture right underneath this that answered the question for me. We're just going to kind of skip right past that dude, and you're going to see the answer right here. So it says, move over COVID-19 and say hello to leprosy. Yes, that leprosy, the biblical plague from the Old and New Testaments, and as recently as even like the Renaissance period. Hell, even as recently as like just a couple hundred years ago. So that's according to the CDC, which says that there is rising evidence that leprosy has become endemic in the southeastern United States. So I guess it's here to stay. So heads up to the people down in the southeastern United States. It says leprosy, also called Hansen's disease, not cutting that out, is an infection caused by slow-growing bacteria called Mycobacterium leprae, according to the CDC. It can affect the nerves, skin, eyes, and lining of the nose. It's a nasal mucosa. There's up to 2 million people worldwide are permanently disabled from the disease, which can be transmitted by prolonged close contact with someone with untreated leprosy over many months. It is thought to be spread via respiratory droplets or even contact with armadillos. So yeah, stay away from armadillos, guys. Glad I am where I am. Ain't not a thing here. Says the CDC, which now apparently believes in natural immunity again. Funny how that works. So it says more than 95% of all people have natural immunity to the disease. Oh, look, it's back. It didn't work during COVID somehow. It's a very selective disease, remember, but it somehow works now. But in a research letter published in the August 2023 edition of the Emerging Infectious Diseases Journal, that must be a fun journal to read. There's researchers from the Kansas City University Graduate Medical Education Advanced Dermatology and Cosmetic Surgery Consortium. Wow. What is it? I'd like to see it abbreviated. The KCUGMEADCSC. Okay, that's a mouthful times 10. Says they raise questions about the rise of the number of cases in the U.S. Says leprosy has been historically uncommon in the United States. Incidents peaked around 1983. I thought I was going to say 1893, which in my brain would have made more sense, but it peaked around 1983, so just 40 years ago. And a drastic reduction in the annual number of documented cases occurred from the 1980s through 2000. However, since then, reports demonstrate a gradual increase in the incidence of leprosy in the United States. Fantastic. So the number of reported cases has more than doubled in the southeastern states over the last decade. According to the National Hansen's Disease Program, 159 new cases were reported in the United States in 2020. Florida was among the top reporting states. So Central Florida accounted for 81% of cases in the Sunshine State, nearly 20% of cases reported nationally. The letter in the journal described the case of a 54-year-old man who sought treatment in a Florida dermatology clinic. Wow, that's where you'd go for that? Because he denied any domestic or foreign travel, exposure to armadillos, prolonged contact with immigrants from leprosy endemic countries. I don't even know what that would be. Or like which countries those are, I should say. Or connections with someone known to have leprosy. The man has been a Central Florida resident for his entire life and works in landscaping and spends long periods of time outdoors. He was referred to an infectious disease program and was prescribed triple therapy with dapsone, rifampin, and clofazimine. All right, I'm sure I butchered all those. As the Sun reports that a Texas man in his 20s was recently diagnosed with leprosy after months of battling a mysterious skin rash. Oh, Jesus, and it turned out to be this thing. He was heavily tattooed and moved to the U.S. from Samoa, where leprosy is still endemic, and that might be the answer then. Just 4 years before he was diagnosed. Oh, wow, okay. I was wrong. So after a course of antibiotics and surgery to repair tendons and damaged tendons in his hands, he is said to be improving. Okay, good. Because all you hear about this disease from, well, the Bible and everything, and just from looking at history, is that it just makes body parts fall off and it kills you. So glad to know that it's treatable. I kind of figured it would have been anyway. According to the Texas Department of State Health Services, there are about 200 to 250 newly diagnosed cases reported to the National Registry each year. The largest number of cases in the U.S. live in California, Texas, Louisiana, Florida, New York, Hawaii, and Puerto Rico. Which one of those doesn't belong? I'd say it's New York, but they have a large immigrant population, so that's probably why it's on there. But the rest of those are all, southern states, or have, like California, sunnier than most places. And of course, there's Puerto Rico and Hawaii, the two islands, but Hawaii is on the way to Samoa, and Puerto Rico, of course, would be, I guess, the south, if you want to say that. Researchers said a high percentage of cases in the southern United States were found to carry the same unique strain of M. leprae as 9 banded armadillos in the region, suggesting a strong likelihood of zoonotic transmission. But while a recent systematic review supports an increasing role of anthropogenic and zoonotic transmission of leprosy, another study demonstrated that in cases in the eastern United States, including Georgia and Central Florida, lacked zoonotic exposure or recent residence outside of the United States. That led researchers to suspect that international migration of persons with leprosy is a potential source of autochthonous transmission. I'm sure I butchered that word too. They noted that the number of international migrants in North America increased from 27.6 million persons in 1990 to 58.7 million in 2020. It's more than double. Jesus. So a link to migration may account for the increase in incidence of leprosy in historically non-endemic areas. According to the World Health Organization, which sucks, as per data of 2019, Brazil, India, and Indonesia reported more than 10,000 new cases, while 13 other countries, it's Bangladesh, Democratic Republic of the Congo, Ethiopia, Madagascar, Mozambique, Myanmar, Nepal, Nigeria, Philippines, Somalia, South Sudan, Sri Lanka, and the United Republic of Tanzania, each reported 1,000 to 10,000 new cases. So not only are migrants bringing communicable diseases like COVID-19 and tuberculosis across the southern border, yeah, I have seen that there's been a rise in tuberculosis, and it's another disease from, hundreds of years ago, even as recently as like the Old West. I mean, Doc Holliday died of it. It's making a comeback because of the southern border being open. It says, but they're also likely bringing leprosy. That is just fantastic news. It's been added to the Department of Health and Human Services list of diseases with public health significance, according to U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. It says the Department of Health and Human Services has designated the following conditions as communicable diseases of public health significance that apply to immigration medical examinations conducted in the United States: gonorrhea, leprosy, syphilis at the infectious stage, and tuberculosis as active. Only a Class A TB diagnosis renders an applicant inadmissible to the United States. Under current CDC guidelines, Class A TB means TB that is clinically active and communicable. It says HIV was removed from the list in 2009 at the behest of Barack Obama's HHS. That's curious. So the CBP notes that an individual who is HIV positive should not indicate that he or she has a communicable disease of public health significance when applying for an ESTA, it's Electronic System for Travel Authorization, based on his or her HIV status alone. So I'm sure that will comfort the young women and children affected with HIV and other STDs as they're trafficked over the southern border. Yeah, I don't know why we would have stopped that. We were looking at like a disease that basically kills everybody. Like, I know HIV is certainly treatable these days, but dear God, like, you're talking about something that's essentially a death sentence, no matter how long it takes. Like, why wouldn't that be on the list? Thanks, Obama. So, by the way, you should know that this article will most likely be demonetized by the good folks at Google who don't want us talking about COVID-19 and other diseases coming over the border. That's probably true. Says the quote from the CDC above likely triggered the alarm that gets us demonetized. Says it's stupid. I know we were right about nearly everything COVID related for more than 2 years, while the legacy media got major parts of the story wrong, including that it likely escaped from a lab in Wuhan. It's a trigger. That masks were basically useless in stopping the spread of the disease. Trigger. And that there are side effects from the vaccines that no one wants to talk about. Major trigger. But we're still paying the price for telling you the truth and reporting inconvenient facts about the big tech gatekeepers don't want you to see. And by the way, when I was saying trigger, for people that are just listening and not watching, yes, those words are there in all caps, so that's why I said it that way. Because as a result, we will most likely make no money from this article or a pile of others that have been demonetized recently, and that's just in the last few days. That sucks. And then it just, it just goes on like a little disclaimer about how they get demonetized because they talk about the uncomfortable thing. So what do you guys think about this? This is yet another disease that's becoming more prevalent, though slowly, and thankfully at that, in the United States since Joe Biden decided to let us just not have a border anymore. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe. Talk to you soon. Bye.